I never thought my life could take such a turn. My name is Mark, and I'm a chef and owner of a small bistro called Savory Bliss. It was a dream of mine for years, own place where I could share my passion for food with the world. I'd poured everything into that restaurant, financially and emotionally. The grand opening was set, and I was excited, but there were signs that something was off with my wife, Lisa. Lisa and I had been married for 5 years, and while we had our ups and downs, I never imagined she would betray me like this. Lately, I'd noticed her spending more time on her phone, always texting and whispering when I walked into the room. She'd become distant, almost cold. At first, I chalked it up to the stress of the restaurant opening, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. The night of the grand opening arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves. I wanted everything to be perfect, friends, family, and food to impress. The kitchen was buzzing, and I was in the zone, making sure everything was just right. As the night wore on, I caught glimpses of Lisa acting strangely. She seemed to be avoiding me, laughing too loudly at a joke from a man I didn't recognize, Eric, one of my investors. He was charming, and the way he leaned toward her made my stomach knot. I brushed it off, focusing on my guests and the food. Halfway through the evening, I decided to grab a moment alone, needing a quick breather from the intense energy of the restaurant. I slipped into the walk-in freezer to cool off, both physically and emotionally. As I stood there trying to gather my thoughts, I heard voices outside. Curiosity got the better of me, and I cracked the door open just enough to see. It was Lisa and Eric together, kissing. My heart sank. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. The woman I had loved, who had promised to stand by me, was in the arms of another man in my restaurant. On opening night, no less. I rushed back into the kitchen, my mind racing as I tried to process the betrayal. I wanted to scream, to confront them right then and there, but something held me back. Maybe it was the fear of ruining the night for everyone else, or perhaps the hope that it was all a misunderstanding, but deep down I knew. After I finished with the last table and the evening wound down, I found Lisa in our small office connected to the kitchen. She was flipping through her phone, acting like nothing had happened. I felt my heart pounding in my chest, but I had to confront her. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Looked up, her expression a mix of confusion and annoyance. "Mark, I'm busy, can't this wait?" she replied, but I wouldn't let it slide. I needed answers. I told her about what I had seen, and the look on her face was one of pure shock. But instead of admitting to the truth, she immediately started with her excuses. "Oh, come on, it was just a kiss. You know how he is, he's just being friendly," she said, rolling her eyes as if it was nothing serious. I felt my anger boil over. Friendly. In the walk-in freezer on our opening night, I shot back. "This isn't just some harmless flirtation, Lisa." Her responses were a mix of blame and deflection. She claimed I was overreacting, that I needed to lighten up. I could barely process her words. It felt like she was dismissing my feelings, making me feel like the crazy one for even being upset. The confrontation drained me. I felt rage, confusion, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. How could someone so close to me turn into a stranger in a matter of moments? That night marked the beginning of a tumultuous emotional journey I never wanted to embark on. I stood there, breathing heavily, my mind spinning. The smell of fresh food surrounded me, an irony against the sour taste of betrayal. I thought about everything we'd built together, the love we had shared, and it all felt like a facade. I wanted to scream, to break something, but instead I just stood there, processing the reality of what I had learned. And through the pain, I knew this would only be the beginning of a long, winding road. After that confrontation, everything changed. I felt like I was walking through a fog, and it was suffocating. Lisa, with her dismissive attitude, only added fuel to the fire of my anger. I was hurt, confused, and utterly lost. I had just opened my dream restaurant, the culmination of years of hard work, but all I could think about was the betrayal that had shattered my world. Over the next few days, I tried to focus on work. I threw myself into my kitchen, pouring my heart into the dishes and striving to make Savory Bliss a success, but Lisa's presence felt unbearable. Every time I saw her, all I could think about was the image of her and Eric in that freezer. I replayed the moment over and over in my head. I wanted to confront her again, to force her to face the reality of what she had done, but every time I opened my mouth, the words got stuck. Instead, I found myself avoiding her. I stayed late at the restaurant, worked weekends, and even skipped dinners we had planned. I needed space, but Lisa didn't take it well. She bombarded me with texts, asking where I was and why I was ignoring her. Her frustration turned to anger as she accused me of being distant and cold. I felt a pang of guilt, but it quickly morphed into a sense of self-preservation. I had to protect myself. One night after a long shift, I came home to find her waiting for me, arms crossed and a scowl on her face. "You can't keep avoiding me forever, Mark. We need to talk about what happened," she said, her tone sharp. I wasn't ready for this, but I knew it was inevitable. "I saw you with Eric," I said flatly, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You can't just brush it off as nothing. That's not what it was, and you know it. You're making a big deal out of nothing." Her voice rose, and I could see the anger bubbling beneath the surface. "You're just trying to make me the villain here because you're upset about the restaurant." I couldn't believe my ears. "I'm upset because my wife is cheating on me, Lisa. This isn't about the bistro, this is about us." I shot back, my voice full of pain. She rolled her eyes again, that same dismissive attitude creeping back in. "I didn't cheat on you. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. You know how stressful this all is. You can't handle the pressure and you think I can just sit back and watch you drown in it." I felt my heart drop. She was turning this around, blaming me for her actions. I couldn't recognize the woman I had married. "You're right, I'm under a lot of pressure and you're adding to it with your lies," I yelled. "You're trying to make it sound like it's my fault for wanting loyalty and trust in our marriage." The argument descended into chaos, each of us hurling accusations at the other. I couldn't believe the woman I loved was being so cruel, and it only made my feelings of betrayal deepen. After what felt like hours of shouting, I stormed out of the house, needing air, needing clarity. I found myself wandering the streets, the city alive around me, but I was dead inside. I thought about everything, the plans we had, the future we had envisioned, and how quickly it had all unraveled. I stopped at a local park, sitting on a bench, feeling the weight of my decisions pressing down on me. I had to face the reality of my marriage. This wasn't just about infidelity, it was about trust, communication, and what we had become. I felt an overwhelming mixture of anger and sadness wash over me. I loved Lisa, but her actions made me question everything. Days turned into weeks, and the tension between us only grew. I started to notice changes in Lisa, too. She seemed increasingly defensive and erratic. She'd argue over trivial things, her mood swinging from anger to tears in an instant. It was hard to tell whether she was truly remorseful or just angry at being caught. The stress of the restaurant didn't help either. Business was picking up and I was stressed beyond belief. I had high hopes for a Michelin star, but I couldn't shake the emotional turmoil that plagued me every time I stepped into the kitchen. Every moment was tainted with the memory of Lisa and Eric. I needed to make a decision. I couldn't continue to live this way. I had to find a way to regain control over my life, to protect myself from further heartache. The question loomed in my mind: what was I going to do about my marriage? How could I move forward knowing what I now knew? I began to formulate a plan as the days wore on. There had to be a way to reclaim my power, to turn the tide in this battle I never wanted to fight. The thought of revenge crept into my mind, and I started to consider just how I might proceed. I knew I had to act, but how would I do it without losing myself in the chaos? I was determined to find a way to heal, but part of me craved a reckoning. As I grappled with the emotional fallout of Lisa's betrayal, I found myself thinking about revenge more often than I'd like to admit. It wasn't something I had ever considered before. Violence, anger, or even hate were never part of my character. But as I watched my marriage crumble, the thought of taking back what was mine felt oddly empowering. I needed to channel this pain into something tangible, something that would not only give me closure, but also show Lisa that she couldn't just walk away unscathed. I started by gathering information. I wanted to know more about Eric, the man who had slipped into my life uninvited, who had turned my opening night into a nightmare. I did a little digging on him and learned that he was a local food critic turned investor. Charming, suave, and seemingly well-connected in the culinary world. No wonder Lisa had been so enamored by him. But what I found most interesting was that Eric had some skeletons of his own. As I delved deeper, I discovered a few notable things about him. He had a reputation for being a bit of a womanizer, which made sense given how easily he had crossed that line with Lisa. I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. If she had strayed, then perhaps he wasn't the golden ticket she thought he was. But I needed more than just a sliver of information. I needed a plan. I decided to set a trap, one that would expose the truth about their affair and hopefully humiliate both of them. I needed evidence, something concrete that Lisa couldn't brush off as a moment of weakness. That would require some careful maneuvering, but I was determined. I began to play my part as the oblivious husband. I acted as if nothing was wrong, putting on a facade of normalcy for Lisa. I'd smile and laugh with her, even as my heart felt heavy with resentment. I would casually mention how well business was doing, how I was meeting new clients, and how things were on the up and up at the restaurant. She seemed pleasantly surprised, even grateful for my positivity. Perhaps it was guilt, or perhaps just the illusion that everything was fine. I didn't care. It was all part of the game. While I maintained this charade, I started to put my plan into action. I made a few calls to some friends in the food industry, one of whom was a photographer looking to build his portfolio. I told him I wanted to organize a secret tasting event for a select group of critics and investors. The idea was to create a buzz without alerting Lisa or Eric about the true purpose. I wanted them both in the same room, and for Lisa to see firsthand the fallout from her decisions. The day of the tasting arrived, and I was both excited and nervous. The restaurant was buzzing with energy, and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I had everything set up. The table was beautifully arranged, with the best dishes I had crafted, and the atmosphere was perfect. I had invited a small group of critics and influencers, including Eric, and I knew that Lisa would feel the pressure of being in a room filled with people she had to impress. When Lisa walked in, I could see the surprise on her face. "What's going on?" she asked, clearly caught off guard. I smiled, feigning ignorance. "Just a little tasting event, thought it would be fun. You're here to support me, right?" "Of course," she replied, though the tension in her voice was unmistakable. I could see her scanning the room, likely searching for Eric. He arrived shortly after, and the moment their eyes met, I felt a rush of satisfaction. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The evening unfolded beautifully, with laughter, compliments, and the clinking of glasses. But I kept an eye on Lisa and Eric, watching their interactions closely. It was clear they were trying to keep things casual, but I could see the sparks flying. Each laugh he shared with her felt like a dagger to my heart, but I steeled myself. I had to keep my composure. This was a carefully orchestrated performance. As the night went on, I made sure to circulate among my guests, sharing stories about the dishes and engaging in conversations. But I kept an ear on Lisa and Eric, barely able to contain my disdain as I caught snippets of their chatter. They were flirting openly, and I couldn't help but feel a swell of anger. At one point, I excused myself to the kitchen, where I gathered my thoughts and took a moment to breathe. I was racing against time, and I knew I had to execute the next part of my plan. I had arranged for a hidden camera to capture their interactions. It was a risky move, but I wanted irrefutable evidence that Lisa had crossed a line. When the moment felt right, I returned to the dining area, grabbing my phone and casually walking past where they were sitting. I discreetly activated the camera, capturing the two of them in what I knew would be a compromising position. I could see the way he leaned in closer, the way she laughed at his jokes. They were oblivious to the world around them, lost in their bubble. And it made my stomach churn. With everything in place, I was ready to execute the final phase of my plan. I knew I had to show Lisa the truth, to make her confront the reality of her actions and the man she was choosing over our marriage. It was time to shatter her illusions and expose the consequences of her betrayal, not just for her, but for Eric too. As the evening drew to a close, I felt a sense of anticipation mixed with dread. I had set the stage for what was about to unfold, and I knew that once the truth came out, nothing would ever be the same. I wasn't just looking for revenge. I wanted Lisa to understand the depths of her choices, to feel the weight of her betrayal, and to grasp that this was not simply a game she could win. She was about to realize that actions have consequences, and I was ready to deliver the blow that would change everything. As the tasting event wound down, I could feel the tension in the air thickening. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the restaurant, but beneath that facade, I felt a storm brewing. I had orchestrated every moment of this night to bring Lisa face to face with the reality of her affair, and now it was time to set my plan into motion. Once the guests started to leave, I gathered my courage, knowing that the confrontation ahead would be the most difficult part. I had already captured a few moments of Lisa and Eric together, leaning closely, whispering, and laughing in a way that was too intimate for my liking. I planned to show her that evidence on my phone to make her understand that I wouldn't tolerate being walked all over. With the last few guests trickling out, I approached Lisa, who was tidying up the table with a radiant smile on her face. She looked blissful and oblivious, and for a fleeting moment I felt a pang of longing for the woman I once knew. But I quickly pushed that feeling aside. I couldn't let nostalgia cloud my judgment. "Hey, can we talk?" "I need to show you something," I said, my voice steady but laced with urgency. "Mark, I'm tired. Can't it wait until the morning?" She replied, rubbing her temples. I shook my head. "No, it can't. It's important." Reluctantly, she followed me to the small office space off the kitchen. The room was dimly lit, and the atmosphere felt heavy as I shut the door behind us. I took a deep breath, gripping my phone tightly, and steeled myself for what I was about to do. "Here," I said, pulling up the video I had recorded. I could feel my heart racing as I played the footage, watching her expression change from confusion to shock as the images of her and Eric filled the screen. "Mark, what's this?" she exclaimed, her eyes widening in disbelief. "This is what you've been hiding, Lisa. This is what you've turned our marriage into." I cut her off before she could make excuses. "You think this is just a joke. This is real life, and you've been seeing him behind my back." Her face flushed with color, and for a brief moment I saw fear flicker in her eyes, but it quickly morphed into anger. "You set this up. You spied on me," she shouted, her voice rising. "Spying? No, I needed proof. You've lied to me over and over again. I deserve to know." "The truth," I shot back, my voice growing more heated. "You can't just invade my privacy like this. You're acting like a crazy person," she yelled, her words laced with venom. "Crazy? You're the one who's been acting delusional, thinking you can play me while I'm busting my ass to make this restaurant work." I could feel my pulse quickening, a mixture of anger and hurt spilling over. "You want to blame me for your mistakes? Look at what you've done to us." She turned away, running a hand through her hair in frustration. "I didn't mean for it to happen. Eric just understood me in a way you didn't. I felt like you were so focused on the restaurant that you forgot about me." "That's bullshit. I've worked my ass off for us. This restaurant is our dream, and you didn't even give me a chance to talk about what's been bothering you." I couldn't believe she was trying to twist this around. "You couldn't come to me and say you felt neglected. Instead, you chose to cheat on your husband." Her expression wavered between defiance and regret, but I could see the cracks forming in her armor. I was overwhelmed, Mark. I thought things would get better, I really did," she said, her voice softer now. "Overwhelmed? So your solution was to find comfort in another man. You could have talked to me about how you felt. We could have worked through it together." I replied, my voice faltering just for a moment. Tears began to form in her eyes, and I felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her, to embrace her and tell her it would all be okay, but the other part was furious. She had broken my trust, shattered the foundation of our marriage, and I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive her. "I don't know if I can do this anymore, Mark," she said quietly, her voice trembling. I can't go back to how things were." "Is that what you really want, to throw everything away?" I said, my heart sinking at her words. She looked at me, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "I don't know. I need time to think. This is all too much right now." I stepped back, trying to process her response. "Time? You think more time will fix this?" "I didn't mean for it to happen. I made a mistake, an awful mistake," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The weight of her confession hung between us, and I felt the air thicken around us. "I need to decide what I want too," I replied, my voice steady but filled with sadness. "I won't be a fool anymore, Lisa. I can't just pretend everything is fine." As she wiped her tears away, I could see the fear etched on her face. For the first time, I felt a sense of power in my stance. This was my life, my marriage, and I was no longer willing to let her dictate the terms. "I'll give you space to think," I said, my voice firm. "But know this, I won't tolerate being disrespected again. You need to figure out what you want, and if you want me, you'll have to earn my trust back." She nodded silently, and I turned to leave, feeling a mix of triumph and despair. I had confronted her, exposed the truth, and taken a stand for myself. But what lay ahead was uncertain. Would she try to win me back? Or was this the beginning of the end? As I stepped out of the office, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was just beginning. I had exposed her betrayal, but I still needed to figure out what I wanted for myself. I was determined to regain control over my life and my heart, but the path ahead was going to be anything but easy. In the days following our confrontation, a strange silence enveloped our home. Lisa and I existed in the same space but felt miles apart. I had exposed the truth, but what did it really mean for us? I spent long hours at the restaurant, pouring my energy into the kitchen, trying to drown out the emotional turmoil swirling in my mind. The dishes I crafted felt like a lifeline, a way to channel my pain into something beautiful and tangible. But no matter how hard I worked, the ghost of Lisa's betrayal lingered. Every time I returned home, I felt the weight of our unspoken words hanging in the air. She was there, present but distant, as if we were strangers living under the same roof. I could see the guilt etched on her face, yet it was accompanied by an unsettling mixture of confusion and anger. It was evident that she was struggling to process the reality of her actions. One evening, after another long shift, I came home to find Lisa sitting on the couch, her expression weary. She looked at me as I entered, her eyes searching for something. Understanding, forgiveness, perhaps. I felt my heart race at the thought of facing her again. "Can we talk?" she asked hesitantly. I nodded, bracing myself for what was to come. As I sat down across from her, the air felt thick with tension. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, her voice tentative. "I know I hurt you deeply and I can't take that back, but I want you to know that I regret what I did. I don't want to lose you." I studied her face, searching for sincerity. "What does that mean, Lisa? Are you willing to do the work to fix this, to make amends?" "Yes, absolutely. I understand now how much I've jeopardized our relationship." "Been selfish," she admitted, her voice cracking. "I let my insecurities get the better of me. I thought I needed validation, but I was wrong. I just want to be with you. I love you, Mark." Her words hit me like a freight train. Love. It was a word that had once flowed freely between us but now felt weighted with doubt. I wanted to believe her, but trust was a fragile thing, easily broken and hard to rebuild. "You say you love me, but love doesn't betray," I replied, my voice steady. "What happened between you and Eric wasn't just a mistake, it was a choice. You chose to let him in." "I know," she said, tears pooling in her eyes, "and I hate myself for it. I never meant to hurt you. I was confused and looking for something I thought was missing, but in reality it was right here all along." It was hard to reconcile my feelings. I wanted to feel sympathy for her, to comfort her in her moment of vulnerability, but anger still simmered beneath the surface. I had invested everything into our relationship, and now I felt like a fool for having believed in her without question. "I need time to process this, Lisa," I finally said. "You've shattered my trust, and I don't know if I can just jump back into things as if nothing happened." "I understand. I'll give you space," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. "But please know that I'm committed to making this right. I'll do whatever it takes." As I left the living room, I felt a mix of relief and uncertainty. Part of me wanted to believe in the possibility of healing, but another part of me was terrified of being hurt again. I needed more than just words, I needed action. The following weeks felt like a prolonged dance of emotions. Lisa made a conscious effort to show her commitment. She'd cook dinner, take care of the house, and even show up at the restaurant during busy nights to lend a hand. I could see her determination to win me back, and yet I remained cautious. I wasn't ready to let down my guard completely. One night, as I was closing up the restaurant, I came across an email from a local food critic I had been in touch with earlier. The subject line read Michelin star recommendation. My heart raced as I read through the email. It was an invitation to submit my restaurant for consideration. I felt a swell of pride. The hard work was paying off. I shared the news with Lisa and her eyes lit up with excitement. "This is amazing, Mark. You deserve this," she exclaimed, her enthusiasm palpable. For a moment we shared a genuine connection, a glimpse of the love we once had. But as the days went by, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to confront the situation with Eric. I couldn't allow him to continue to be a part of our lives unchallenged. I decided it was time to meet him face to face, to let him know that I wouldn't back down. I arranged to meet Eric under the guise of wanting to discuss a potential collaboration for the restaurant. He agreed, and I felt a mix of anxiety and determination as I prepared for our meeting. I wanted him to know that I was no longer the passive husband, willing to let things slide. As we sat down at a nearby cafe, I could see the arrogance in his demeanor. He smiled, leaning back in his chair confidently. "Mark, good to see you. I've been meaning to chat about some of the exciting things happening in the culinary world," he began. I cut him off, leaning forward. "Let's skip the pleasantries, Eric. I know about you and Lisa. I've seen the way you two interact, and it needs to stop." His expression shifted, but he quickly masked it with a smirk. "Oh, is that so? Lisa's a grown woman, Mark. She makes her own choices." "Yeah, and those choices have consequences, especially for her marriage," I replied, my voice steady. "You can be charming all you want, but she's not just a conquest for you to win. You've hurt her and you've hurt me." He laughed, a cold, condescending sound. "You think you can come in here and dictate her choices. She made her decision, and frankly, it was her loss." I felt my blood boil. "If you think this is over, you're mistaken. I'm not going to let you waltz into my life and take what's mine." "Ah, the classic claiming my territory approach," he said mockingly, leaning back further. "You really think you can win her back just because you throw a little tantrum? Good luck with that." At that moment, I realized I was dealing with a man who thrived on chaos. I couldn't let him get under my skin. This isn't about winning or losing, it's about respect. If you really cared about Lisa, you'd back off and let her figure out what she wants without your influence. He raised an eyebrow, clearly amused by my words. "And what if she decides she wants me? Then I guess you'll see how far you can go with that," I replied, my voice low and steady. "But don't forget, I'm not the man you think I am. I'm not going to let you destroy my marriage without a fight." With that, I stood up, leaving him at the table, a quiet storm of emotions swirling in my chest. I had confronted Eric, and while I didn't feel victorious, I realized I had taken a step toward reclaiming my life. As I walked back to my car, I felt a sense of clarity. I was no longer just the betrayed husband. I was a man fighting to save his marriage and his dreams. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was ready to face them head-on. I would either rebuild my relationship with Lisa or find the strength to move on, but either way, I wouldn't back down from the fight. It was time to take control of my destiny once and for all. In the weeks that followed my confrontation with Eric, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I had stepped into my own power, but the uncertainty of my marriage still loomed over me. Lisa was trying her best to show me her commitment, and I was cautiously letting her back in, but the wounds were still fresh. Trust, once shattered, was not so easily repaired. The Michelin star recommendation became a beacon of hope for me during this tumultuous time. I poured my heart and soul into the restaurant, working long hours and perfecting every detail. The kitchen became my sanctuary, a place where I could escape the heartache and channel my emotions into art. Each dish I created symbolized my resilience, a testament to the hard work I had put into building my dream. Lisa tried to support me in this journey. She began to understand the importance of my passion and the dedication it required. I was impressed. She brought in the best local ingredients, helped with the menu, and even promoted the restaurant on social media. I wanted to believe that things could get back to normal, that we could rebuild something stronger than before. but the shadow of her affair still lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that every time I looked at her, I was reminded of the betrayal. I often found myself reflecting on whether I could truly forgive her. It wasn't just about Eric. It was about the cracks that had formed in our marriage, the communication breakdown that had led us to this point. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, I returned home to find Lisa waiting for me with a candle-lit dinner set up. She had gone all out, preparing a beautiful meal complete with wine and ambience. The effort she put into it struck a chord within me. As we sat down to eat, the tension felt palpable, but I decided to focus on the moment, to let go of the pain, at least. For the evening, Mark, I've been thinking a lot about us, Lisa began, her voice soft yet earnest. I know I've made mistakes, but I want to work on our relationship. I want to be better for us. I appreciate that, Lisa, but it's going to take more than gestures and apologies, I replied, my tone steady. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. We need to communicate openly, and you have to be willing to confront the reasons that led you to make those choices. I know and I will, she promised, her eyes earnest. I'm committed to this, to us. I don't want to lose you. I want to be the partner you deserve. As we shared that meal, I saw glimpses of the woman I fell in love with, the woman who had been lost for so long. I realized that maybe it was worth giving her a chance to prove herself again. But I also knew that I had to stand firm. I wouldn't allow myself to be walked all over again. In the days that followed, I implemented changes in my life that were about more than just the restaurant. They were about me taking back control. I sought therapy to help navigate my feelings and to understand how I could set healthy boundaries moving forward. It wasn't just about Lisa. It was about me reclaiming my identity and ensuring I wouldn't end up in a similar situation again. Meanwhile, I focused on the upcoming Michelin star submission. The restaurant buzzed with excitement as we prepared for the big day. I wanted our food to shine, to make a mark on the culinary world, and I poured every ounce of my passion into the kitchen. The night of the submission came, and I felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Lisa was there, cheering me on, and for the first time in a while I felt a sense of unity. We were both invested in this dream, and as we plated each dish, I could sense the energy in the kitchen, the team coming together, the flavors melding perfectly. When the time came to present our dishes to the judges, I felt a surge of confidence. I remembered what I had fought for, not just the restaurant but my own sense of self-worth. This was my moment to shine. As the judges tasted our food, I felt a rush of adrenaline. I was proud of what we had created, and despite everything that had transpired, I could see the hope in Lisa's eyes. Maybe we could work through the pain, maybe we could redefine our relationship. Weeks later, as I sat in my restaurant surrounded by friends and family, I received the news. Savory Bliss had been awarded a Michelin star. The sense of triumph washed over me, but it wasn't just about the award. It was a validation of my hard work, my passion, and my resilience. It was a fresh start. When I turned to Lisa, I saw tears in her eyes. "We did this together," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I'm so proud of you." "It's just the beginning," I replied, pulling her into a hug. "We have a long way to go, but I believe we can do it if we're both committed." As we stood there, surrounded by the people who had supported us, I realized that healing would be an ongoing journey. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, but I felt stronger now than ever before. I was no longer just a victim of betrayal. I was a man who had faced his demons, fought for his dreams, and emerged victorious. I had learned that love is not just about grand gestures, but about the strength to rebuild and grow together, even after the darkest moments. Life is messy. Relationships are complicated, but sometimes, through the pain, we find a way to create something beautiful, a second chance, a new beginning, and the hope that we can rise above it all.